Peace, everybody. Welcome back to All Viral Access Media, man. Make like, share, and subscribe. But we're going to get right to it, man. I ain't going to make this too long. But y'all know that this dude is already arrested for dismembering Celeste Hernandez. Chopped her body up. And the only reason why he killed her is because he didn't want her to blow up their spot. This dude was damn near a grown man having sex with a 13-year-old. He started when she was like 13 years old. These dudes is weird, but the most importantly, I know, but it's all good. We have to make this be known, okay? He's not one of us. He is not one of us. He's not FBA. So we have to make these distinctions. It's a tragic incident, but we have to make this clear because unconsciously, people will say, them niggas, them black Americans, right? Crime, 1350, right? But we like, no, hell no. We gonna cut this shit up and split it 8 ways, nigga. Y'all take y'all credit for y'all shit. But anyway, let's go to the documentary. Right? I'm not gonna play the whole thing because I want to go to law and crime where it breaks it down as well too. Let's go right to this documentary and listen to his mother. All right, romantic homicide. You know, a lot of songs is being used against him in this trial. Nigga, you wrote a song about killing her. We gonna go through here all this shit. Let's go to the 2-minute mark. We gonna go to his parents. Right. Yeah, let's start that accent. And he looks, I'm gonna show some other pictures. He looks exactly, he don't look like an FBA at all. We know our people just like y'all know y'all people, okay? But, you hear the accent. She's Caribbean. She's literally Caribbean. And people are saying that the father is African. I tried to research. There's nothing publicly that even will say that they even American. But even though we know they probably was born here, the father or whatever the case may be. But we know that mother, yeah, her ass been here for probably 30, 40 years. Okay? She kept that accent. But let's continue a little bit.
He would be sitting, he would be in a closet making music, and he said, "Oh, I'm making music for myself." And I was like, okay.
Sound isolation.
We're going to leave that one right there. So we already know. He's literally Caribbean. Half Caribbean or half FBA. We don't know. Or just half Caribbean, half African. Either way, that's y'all people. Either way, that's on y'all. Because we don't do no shit like that. The only time we do some shit like that is if there is some mental breakdown. Yeah, we do some heinous shit on our side. We'll take credit for that. We'll take accountability for our shit. But y'all, oh hell no. We are tired of y'all trash getting dumped in our trash can. Hold y'all own shit. But let's keep it pushing, right? Let's keep it pushing. Hold on. Hey, this is crazy, man. This is crazy. He's going down in history as well, he ain't the only one, but a murderer musician. You dig what I'm saying? He done made his art into reality. So yeah, it's a big deal, man. But he ain't us. But just listen for a minute, y'all. Pay attention.
Claims in this document are incredibly disturbing. Allegations that he stabbed this 14-year-old girl to death to keep her from revealing that he had been sexually abusing her. That's the allegation. That he allegedly used a chainsaw to cut up her body in an inflatable kiddie pool in the garage. More details regarding this alleged secret, illegal sexual relationship. More importantly, for the prosecution's case, what evidence they have to prove that. And that's what I want to get into. So according to investigators, Celeste was last seen or heard from on April 23rd, 2025.
Don't forget, if you look at this case, they have DNA tied to him because he's supposed to have been at some show or whatever by the time this happened, so they say. But regardless of whatever the case may be, they have DNA. His DNA tying him to her murder.
And David according to prosecutors, sent a rideshare car to pick her up from her hometown of Lake Elsinore and bring her back to the home that he was apparently renting in the Hollywood Hills, a trip of more than 80 miles. Prosecutors claim she was exchanging messages with David during this ride, and then she apparently never uses the phone again. Celeste's dismembered body was found months later on September 8th in a Tesla Model X, allegedly registered to David. And according to this filing, the car had been parked on the street just 400 feet from where David was staying, and then it was towed. The manager at the tow yard reported a horrific smell, flies around the front trunk, and that's when authorities discovered Celeste's body. According to this document, it's called the People's Brief regarding preliminary hearing evidence, quote, surveillance video and other evidence confirmed defendant, meaning David, was the last person to drive the vehicle on July 29th, 2025, before he left Los Angeles on a concert tour. So that's about, what, a month or so before the car was towed and the body was found. It's not clear if anyone else actually moved the car or had any knowledge of what was reportedly inside. I want you to keep that in mind. We're going to talk about it later. There's something in the filing that I thought was really interesting. But it goes on to say, quote, at the tow yard, LAPD detectives opened the Tesla's front storage compartment and observed a black cadaver bag covered in insects. Inside the bag, they discovered a severely decomposed head and torso. A plastic garbage bag beneath the black cadaver bag contained the dismembered arms and legs. However, the victim's ring and pinky fingers on her left hand had been amputated and were not found in the Tesla. On September 16, 2025, the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner's Department positively identified the body from dental records as belonging to the victim. But this is the part that's new, okay? The filing claims that LAPD robbery homicide detectives determined that Celeste and David met in January of 2022 when she was just 11 years old.
Yeah,
That
11.
he allegedly began a sexual relationship with Celeste when she was 13. David was 18. And the court paperwork revealed that investigators have been looking into David for quite some time.
But hold on. How did they even meet? Where did they meet? It's vague. I don't know. Was he already rich? Well, already popular? Because I think at 17 he became popular, right? That's when that song, dropped and it took off or whatever. That's something I'm not hearing. But what happened to her parents? How? See, this is why you have to monitor your kids' phones. Do her parents know his parents? How did that even link, and how were they able to even see each other like that? I understand people will lie and say, "Mom, I'm going to the store. I'm going outside to play," and name a friend that she is comfortable with her daughter playing with, and just go see him. But she got a phone, and now while she's 13, she's like out and about sneaking, and like nobody's not paying attention to their children. I know kids can get away with stuff, but it's like, damn, it make you question the parents too. We cannot. Kids are slick, but we've been there before. We've been on this earth longer than our kids. We should already be ahead of the game. Watch our fucking kids' phones, man.
Filing says detectives learned the victim had been reported missing to the Riverside County Sheriff's Department by her family, who live in Lake Elsinore, in February and April 2024. RCSD telephonically contacted defendant on February 17, 2024, after they identified a phone number in the victim's phone records that belonged to him. During the call, defendant claimed he had spoken to the victim last on February 13th or 14th, 2024, but stated he was unaware she was a minor or that she had been reported missing. RCSD advised him that Los Angeles Sheriff's Department deputies would be coming to his home. On that day, defendant was living at 804 North Doheny Place in West Hollywood. RCSD requested that LASD conduct a welfare check at defendant's home. LASD deputies went to defendant's home that night at 8:15 p.m. and informed him the victim was a 13-year-old runaway. Defendant again claimed he was unaware she was a minor and he had only met the victim once in person in November of 2023. However, defendant showed deputies a yearbook photo of the victim he had on his cell phone. Although he claimed to be unaware of where the victim was at the time, she returned home 2 days later. By the way, you're seeing how in-depth this investigation was, and maybe kind of gives us an idea of why it took so long for there to be an arrest and for these charges and for the evidence to develop. But remember, prosecutors claim he killed her to keep her quiet about this supposed relationship, to not have her expose him to ruin his career. Just keep that in mind. So the filing continues, quote, despite being informed by law enforcement the victim was only 13, defendant continued to pursue her. After the victim returned home in February 2024, her parents took her cell phone away. Defendant drove to Lake Elsinore and paid a junior high school student in the victim's class $1,000 to give the victim a cell phone defendant purchased so they could stay in contact. Throughout.
Now, pardon my earlier thoughts, because again, sometimes I like to just listen in real time. I should have listened to this first, and I'm just gonna be honest. Maybe I just, usually I would listen to this shit and then do a video, but sometimes I like my own first time reactions. And I'm gonna make sure I don't do that again, and I'm gonna keep this up too. But this nigga went out of his way. Salute to the parents, but still, parents, check your kids' phones, because they took the cell phone and this nigga just hunted her down, paid a damn student $1,000 to give her the phone so they could keep in contact and stuff like that. So you pursued a minor. Mind you, he was homeschooled, so he ain't really had no friends. So he was always home. So he ain't really had that kind of that social experiment like how we was outside, nigga. It wasn't no cell phone. You had to be outside to get to know people. But this nigga, he literally preyed on a little fucking kid. Crazy. Like, I don't know.
2024, the victim spent a significant amount of time with defendant, including summer weekends at his home in the Hollywood Hills and traveling with him to Las Vegas, London, and Texas to meet his family. So now I'm thinking travel records, right? I'm thinking how in-depth this investigation was. And by the way, this is the first time we're hearing just how often Celeste was with, or allegedly was with, this much older man. And it really speaks to how many people were potentially aware that he was maybe in this relationship with a younger girl, right? Members of online forums that David and Celeste were reportedly part of have said they didn't know Celeste was so young, thinking she was David's age. But if she was traveling with him to different places and meeting these people in a circle, did none of them suspect that something was maybe amiss here? I mean, again, assuming these allegations are true. You go back to the filing, quote, text exchanges between the victim and defendant contain references to sex, pregnancy, abortion, and use of the Plan B emergency contraceptive. There are also explicit photographs documenting and corroborating their sexual relationship. In November 2024, defendant and the victim broke up, although they continued to communicate, and text messages suggest they also continued to have sexual relations. See, that's the kind of alleged evidence that is incredibly compelling. What separates this from other cases of, let's say, a he said, she said, right? That's the kind of alleged evidence that supports the sex charge, but goes to the
Hold on, but after the parents took the phone, he got a phone, paid $1,000 to a student to give it to her. Remember, they were just saying she was going to concerts, and going, back and forth to LA. I think the parents at that time, knowing what it is, that they should have sent police. And, maybe they didn't know it was him that she was with. So I give the benefit of the doubt. You know what I mean? I definitely give the benefit of the doubt. So my next point won't even make sense then. But I'll just say the parents knew they should have questioned her. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, man. But this is a sad situation. She looks young. She don't even look 17 right there. To be honest, she looks 14.
The special circumstances of killing a witness, right? Remember, to support the special circumstances allegations, which you would get life in prison without the possibility of parole for the murder charge or the death penalty, allegedly killing her because she's a witness to this, or allegedly killing her to silence her. It's evidence of this purported sexual relationship that's really problematic, or potentially really problematic for David.
And by the way, I have to tell you, this just came out at the time of this recording. So the death certificate for Celeste, and this is per reporting from TMZ, there's a change. It used to say that she was not pregnant. Now it's saying that section is marked U for unknown. So what is this suggesting? That it was possible she could have been pregnant? Not entirely clear.
Per prosecutors, quote, April 23rd, 2025 is the likely date of the victim's death and when all her cellular activity ceased. The night prior, April 22nd, 2025, defendant and the victim engaged in a lengthy argument described in detail in their text messages. The messages reveal the victim's jealousy over defendant's relationships with other women, as defendant led her to believe they had a future together. She became extremely upset and threatened to disclose damaging information about her relationship with defendant to end his career and destroy his life. Defendant's first studio album was due to be released on April 25th, 2025, so 2 days later. He had an emerging multi-million-dollar career already in progress. He also had multiple product endorsements, which were highly profitable. I mean, to give you an idea about what was at stake and what the prosecution may use at trial or a preliminary hearing, I mean, we told you in an episode yesterday that after David was arrested on murder and mutilation.
Look at that nigga right there. You know that nigga looks special. He played with the elements. He do something. And to be honest, I'm thinking this probably was because knowing allegedly he probably like half African or some shit like that. And when mostly Africans do that, like honor killings and shit like that, and killings for what you call it, for riches and stuff like that. And maybe I'm reaching, yoga stretching, but this nigga look like he ain't one of us, man. You know that nigga look special, like the back of the bus with a helmet and 2 seatbelts on a short bus with 1 seat on the bus. Like that's a real special bus. Yeah, that's crazy.
Charges. The video game Fortnite announced it was going to refund players who made David-related purchases in the game, saying in a statement, "We hear the concerns. We have a bunch of changes we're rolling out over time. The first one will be available on Tuesday, April 28th, when anyone who purchased one of these items will be able to get an immediate self-service refund. And right now, players who request refunds for David Cosmetics via player support can be refunded." And according to reporting from the Houston Chronicle, David's song, Locked and Loaded, became the game's first official theme song in 2025. Now he's being canceled across the board. You have companies like Universal Music Group working to remove the songs that he apparently did in collaboration with their artists from streaming platforms. And I say all that because, again, think about what was going on in his life. Think about the height of his career at that time. I have to imagine that prosecutors are going to use this to establish the narrative that he couldn't let Celeste expose him, right? Again, these are just allegations. This is the prosecution's narrative, but you see where they're going. So investigators contend that April 23rd was when Celeste was killed, soon after arriving at that house in the Hollywood Hills. Quote, at approximately 8:40 p.m. on April 23rd, 2025, defendant sent an Uber to transport the victim from her Lake Elsinore home to his residence. They communicated before and during her Uber ride, which dropped her off at defendant's Hollywood Hills home around 10:10 p.m. At approximately 10:30 p.m., defendant sent text messages to the victim inquiring where she was. The people contend this was part of defendant's premeditated plan to cover up the murder, as she was already dead by this time. If that's true, that is a quick turnaround from when she arrived to when she was killed, right? And that goes to that premeditation aspect, lying in wait. Quote, knowing he had to silence the victim before she ruined his music career as she had threatened, very soon after her arrival at his home, defendant stabbed the victim to death multiple times and stood by while she bled out. At no time did he call law enforcement or 911 or take her to an emergency room to attempt to save her life. Despite knowing she was dead and her family was trying to find her, the evidence will show defendant lied and claimed he didn't know where she was. In fact, defendant drove to Santa Barbara County. This is something we've always talked about before. Drove to Santa Barbara County immediately after the victim died, attempting to dispose of her property and destroy evidence. At approximately 11:30 p.m. on April 23rd, 2025, he drove away from his home as he texted and called the victim's phone, asking where she was. Again, these were acts calculated and planned to set up his defense within a very short timeline after the victim's vicious murder. Defendant drove his Tesla north on the 101 freeway to San Marcos Pass Road, SR 154, near Lake Cachuma in Santa Barbara County. He returned home early the following morning on April 24th, 2025, before going to a radio interview for the release of his album that week. He sent 2 additional texts to the victim's phone that day, which obviously went unanswered because she was already dead. After April 26, 2025, defendant never attempted to contact her again. And if that's true, that would be strange, right? Because if that's the case and he had no idea what happened to her, wouldn't he be desperately trying to get a hold of her? I think that's an argument that would be put forward by prosecutors.
Especially after the text that they just had as far as the argument and by her saying she's going to expose everything.
And then the filing gets into the incredibly disturbing details of how David allegedly cut Celeste's body into pieces. Quote, tellingly, defendant subsequently purchased tools to carry out his plot to dismember or dispose of the victim's body. On April 24, 2025, defendant ordered a shovel from Home Depot that was delivered to his home from Postmates. On May 1st, 2025, defendant ordered and subsequently Amazon delivered 2 chainsaws to his home. On May 5th, 2025, defendant ordered and Amazon subsequently delivered a body bag, heavy-duty laundry bags, and a blue inflatable pool to his home. He made these purchases under the fake name Victoria Mendez. On May 8th, 2025, defendant returned to the same area in Santa Barbara County, leaving his home around 11:30 p.m. He returned to the area again on May 31st, 2025. This is an isolated site off SR 154 where the victim's identification was subsequently discovered in January 2026. Additionally, on July 7th, 2025, defendant ordered and subsequently Amazon delivered a burn cage to his home under the same fake name as part of his plan to incinerate evidence. We've talked about that before with Steve Fisher, the private investigator. Quote, moreover, defendant took horrifying measures to destroy and discard the victim's body. After placing her body into the blue inflatable pool to prevent her blood from spilling onto his garage floor, defendant used a chainsaw and perhaps other tools to cut off her limbs. Small blue plastic fragments were found embedded in the victim's remains, which were collected by the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner's Department. The fragments were analyzed by the LAPD's Forensic Science Division Trace Analysis Unit. An expert was able to match a physical fit match from the blue fragments to the blue inflatable pool purchased by defendant in May 2025. In order to distance himself from the victim, he amputated her left ring and pinky fingers because her ring finger contained a tattoo of his name. Her fingers have not been recovered. Defendant then placed her head and torso into the cadaver bag he purchased. He placed her limbs into a garbage bag, which he deposited into his front trunk, laying the cadaver bag on top. For several weeks or possibly months, defendant left the victim's body to decompose inside his Tesla.
That alone, that's too much. I'm going to leave it right there. I'm leaving it right there. This dummy, he done everything to keep a digital footprint to come back to him. He did everything dumb for everything to lead back to him. It's crazy how you do things in order to not, be exposed. You would kill that person, right? To not be exposed because you don't want your career to be ruined. But you will do everything to make sure this person don't expose you, but does everything to make sure that it shows that you did eliminate or murder that person. I'd rather be exposed living and just have to work at Trader Joe's than to be in jail for the rest of their life. But see, this is a death penalty case. So he's going to get put to death. Everything leads back to him. Y'all heard exactly what he read. Dummies. If you want to do something, do it right. And you drove your own Tesla in your own name. You ordered shovels and body bags and blue inflatable pools to your own address. Like, people is stupid. The only thing I just want to say is God bless her soul. God bless her soul. This is a real effed up case. Really effed up. And this is why parents definitely need to monitor their daughters' phone, monitor what they do. These parents were concerned parents. They definitely tried their best. This is why boys or outside influence can manipulate your kids. That's why sometimes we can't blame the parents all the time, because parents do their best to teach their children because they know what's out there. But once they out there or get a little taste of what's out there, because kids don't want to listen to their parents all the time. Yeah, ma, yes, dad, la 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 la. They want to hear something that's going to make them feel better. So once you get a taste of that outside and other experiences, other people, that puts everything that you taught your children into a test. It tests everything that you instilled in your child once they leave that fucking house. So it's very dangerous. That's why it's imperative to do as much as possible to explain those things to your kids, your daughters. Pull up the Kanika Jenkins shit to show that to your child, to your daughters. You want to lie about going to the movie theater or the bowling alley and you end up in a hotel freezer? Show them examples so they can think about it. So once they walk out that door, everything that you put into their mind, they'll have that in the back of their head. But anyway, this motherfucker is not FBA. He is a Caribbean guy. Listen, I don't want to hear we all black. No, we not. Y'all can't sit up here and try to switch sides every time when it benefits you. You black today and the next week you ain't black. No, we're not hearing that. Those are bars. No. When y'all in your country and all that, y'all are described as a Jamaican, a Trini, a Dominican, a Haitian, an African, or whatever. Y'all ain't black. Just because we have the same complexion, we are not the same. We are total different people culturally. Even if you're born here, we are still different culturally. You don't have your lineage does not come from here. Your culture was not born from here. You only adapt into a culture that is not yours. You just born in the land of a different culture of people who just happen to have the same melanin as you. That don't mean you are the same. We are the same. We are different people culturally and lineage-wise. So y'all hold your own nuts on this one. And again, rest in peace to Shorty. This was crazy. But anyway, I'm Swayze. Ghost. Peace.